It is extremely important as citizens to be active in our national, state, and local elections, as decisions on all levels truly impact the businesses on a local level. And tonight we're going to be asking questions that have been created by you, the community, to the candidates for Mayor, District 1, and District 2. Before we begin, I want to explain a few things about the format. First, each candidate will have 5 minutes for an opening statement. Then we'll go into a certain amount of questions where they each will have 2 minutes to answer questions. Each candidate will then have a 3-minute for closing remarks before moving on to the next district or mayor candidates. I do want to show one thing that will help kind of keep this clear for your experience and your view. As when the candidates are speaking, Sherry will go off camera and I will also go off camera, so there's less distractions. So I'm going to go ahead and share a quick screen of mine that I want everyone to look at their Zoom and make one quick change. If you're new to Zoom or if you've used it before, would like you to hide non-video participants. This is just a screen grab, but if you click on the icons just above in the person's name, a drop-down pops up where then you can select hide non-video participants. This will keep only your focus on the candidates that are speaking. Jim will be timing each candidate in their different sessions. They will be notified when they have 2 minutes remaining, 1 minute remaining, and when their time is up. And Jim will politely ask them to stop where they are to ask the next question. And hopefully we can avoid some of the things we've seen on a national level. I do have the power to mute in this forum, and I'm not afraid to use it. All right, before we get going, I would like to, actually, we're about to get started. So I'd like to introduce District 1. And I'd like to introduce Councilmember Tony Kranz and Alex Riley, who I will promote to the forum here. Tony and Alex, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, you each will have 5 minutes for an opening statement introduction, and Tony, you will be first.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I'm not much of a speaker, so I may be, not using all my 5 minutes, but I would like to start by saying thanks to the Chamber for organizing this forum and the viewers out there for working to make an informed decision about who they plan to vote for. My name is Tony Kranz, and I have had the honor of serving as a member of the City Council since 2012. I'm currently finishing my second term, having been elected to represent the entire city on the council. This year, I'm asking for the voters of District 1 to elect me to represent the northern part of the city, since we created districts during this term. I moved to Encinitas 60 years ago as a tiny baby, the son of a PE teacher and coach and a World War II Marine, and a stay-at-home mom who raised us 7 kids and then went back to school to eventually become a nurse practitioner. Growing up in Encinitas during the heyday of our town being known as the flower capital of the world was very, very special. Our home on Ocean View Avenue was across the street from greenhouses that grew carnations. And the only thing that I can remember that was between the hill at Ballure and Olivenhain was the dump. I graduated from San Diego in 1977 and attended Palomar College and Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. I served 10 years in the National Guard and have been involved in the printing business as a project manager for the last 25 years. I'm proud of what we've accomplished during the 2 terms I've served, but especially these last 4 years. We've advanced and completed some very important capital projects and kept Encinitas one of the safest cities in the county. We have a top-notch climate action plan and focus on the environment is something that I've been fortunate to serve with council members who share the values, have earned the endorsement of the Sierra Club, and I look forward to continuing to refine that climate action plan. When the city incorporated in 1986, the built environment that became a significant factor in our quality of life here in the city included three very important parts of regional and national transportation networks. The railroad, which was built in the 1880s, Coast Highway 101, which was built in the 30s, and Interstate 5, which bulldozed its way through Encinitas in the 1960s. And as we all know, the impacts of traffic on our city are significant. In fact, it's what got me involved at City Hall. Cut through traffic on my street in Leucadia was unbearable, and I worked with my neighbors to try and have the city install speed bumps. Unfortunately, the city decided they wanted to put together a neighborhood traffic management program, and they made it almost impossible to have for neighborhoods to put speed bumps in. And one of the things that I've done since serving on the council is have changes made to the neighborhood traffic management program that allows for a street to petition and have that put to a vote amongst the people who live on the street. I also got involved in advocating for the roundabouts that were two of the three that were built on Leucadia Boulevard. And I hope to see construction start on the third within the next year or so. I'm currently serving as the board chairman of the North County Transit District and have worked to make our railroad corridor a better neighbor. We have received the first of 2 brand new locomotives, and we'll eventually get 5 more to replace the entire fleet with less polluting and quieter locomotives. Over the last 30 years, the city has done a number of studies to try and come up with a plan to put the tracks in a trench, but the costs associated with the planning have limited any city action. In fact, when Carlsbad started planning the lowering of the tracks in their downtown village, Mayor Gaspar and I had a meeting with Carlsbad Mayor Matt Hall and Councilmember Mark Packard to explore ways to work together. However, they had no interest in that because they had the money to proceed, and they knew that the city of Encinitas didn't have those funds available. I'm also a big advocate of streetscape. The highway is essentially the same as it's always been. And in fact, there are many stretches of 101 where sidewalks don't even exist. So people that are walking along the side of the road kind of have to guess where they're supposed to be walking. It's long overdue for an upgrade, and the city has done extensive work to get it ready for construction, which should begin before the year ends. The El Camino Real corridor is another area that I would like to focus on. And the city, when we incorporated, had established that the corridor, El Camino Real corridor, would also have a specific plan. So I think—
Tony, you ran out of time, buddy.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Alex, you also have 5 minutes. Sorry, Alex, you were muted. Go ahead.
Thanks. For 19 years, I served the public as a lifeguard for the San Diego Fire Rescue Department. Protecting lives, property, and the environment was a true calling for me. And once again, I see the need to serve and stand up for the residents of my hometown of Encinitas. We are facing many challenges now and in the future. And frankly, many problems we have are from a council that has kicked the can down the road. No oversized high-density projects should be wedged into our established residential neighborhoods. It's out of line. I'll prioritize the immediate review of the emergency disaster plan. Given this year's wildfires, Encinitas must form a plan for a permanent, properly staffed, and equipped fire station for Olivenhain. It's gone on too long, it's understaffed, and we don't even own the property of the station. As far as streetscape, road use has to maintain a balance for all users and safely reach the destination. I'm against streetscape because it's become far too costly, and one lane in each direction will absolutely jeopardize public safety. I've had to drive lights and sirens through the roundabouts in Bird Rock, and I'm telling you from experience, it delays emergency vehicles. Finally, we need to adjust our infrastructure problems. The flooding in Leucadia has gone on for far too long. It has become SOP for the city to pump untreated road runoff directly into the ocean every winter when it rains. We cannot call ourselves an environmental city and keep doing this. And we cannot build streetscape unless we have the proper infrastructure below that. So you'll see I have a few differences with my competitor, but I feel there's a better way forward, and that also includes lowering the tracks to Leucadia. The economic benefits are already proven and will improve noise pollution, air pollution, safety, and the congestion problems that are already keeping us from enjoying our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. We'll go ahead and move into the questions. And just a note for all candidates and for the attendees, for the 2 minutes, Jim is only going to give the 1 minute warning and the stop time. So I'm going to ask the same question to both of you. Tony, you will go first and you'll have 2 minutes. Alex, I'll ask you the same question as soon as Tony is completed. First question. Tony, what are your plans to support the increase in traffic and needs for school infrastructure for the upcoming 15 density housing project?
As part of any development project, there are impact fees that are paid by the developer. And there will be that same method with the projects that are identified as possible through the housing element update. It's been one of those situations where we had to become compliant with state law to create a housing element, and we weren't able to have both the high school district and the elementary school districts participate in the planning process. But the development impact fees will include school impact fees, and as well as they will be required to mitigate traffic in the local area of the projects. I think that ultimately there will indeed be some additional road work that's necessary, and in most cases that's road work that's left over from when the city incorporated. And we have a built environment that doesn't work in some places. For example, the intersection with Saxony and Calle Magdalena and the freeway interchange is a disaster, and it's largely because the Saxony and Calle Magdalena don't line up, so the lights there are absolutely terrible. The city in 1990s put together a plan to line up those streets, and they never followed through on that. And that's one thing that I think is a long overdue and will be the focus, should be the focus of council's work in the years ahead. And there will be others, the projects that are on both ends of Quail Gardens Drive at Leucadia Boulevard and Encinitas Boulevard there's no question that the movements in those. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Councilmember Tony Krantz, I told you guys there might be some mix-ups there, so my apologies. Alex, same question. Alex, what are your plans to support the increase in traffic and needs for school infrastructure for the upcoming 15 density housing projects?
Well, just in the North Leucadia area, we're looking at 1,400 units to only get 80 affordable. And frankly, that's not good enough. And it's going to cause tremendous impacts on our infrastructure that's already overtaxed. We recently found out that the state doubled, if not quadrupled, their numbers. So I really feel that we need to go back to the beginning work with the real numbers, and then formulate a plan. And honestly, I feel we should join Coronado and sue the city, I'm sorry, sue the state and push back in general, because they're demanding unfunded requirements on our city, and it's not right. We are full up as it is.
Thank you, Alex. We will be rotating these. So Alex, you are up next, first on this next question.
Right.
The second question is, how do you view your relationship with residents of your district? Do you feel that you do or would make decisions that reflect what the majority of the residents desire?
Yeah, I do. And first of all, I have a set of guiding principles that basically you have to be able to answer yes to all the questions. And first is it legal? Is it ethical? Is it right for the neighborhood? And is it right for the community and the city at large? If we can't answer yes to all that, the city shouldn't do it. And I know there's certain visions I have for the town that maybe the majority don't feel. If that's the case, then I will go with the majority. But right now, we have a council that has honestly voted against the best interests of our town, and that needs to stop.
Thank you, Alex. Council Member Tony Krantz, same question. How do you view your relationship with residents of your district? Do you feel that you do or would make decisions that reflect the majority of the residents' desires?
Yeah, I think that I'm on the same page with the residents of North Leucadia in District 1. It is an interesting district because it runs from the ocean to almost Rancho Santa Fe Road and, Olivenhain. So it's got a diverse group, and the people that live in east of El Camino Real may not be as interested in what happens in the railroad corridor as the folks that live along the coast. So it's, there will always be those challenges. But my focus since I got active at City Hall has been on traffic. And I think that that's something that we all have in common, is a desire to mitigate traffic. And the Streetscape project has the potential to have a very positive impact on multimodal use of that corridor. And so we are working with the engineers and the experts, and have done that for the last almost 15 years. And we have put together some plans for a fantastic project that will make us, a wonderful area, which will essentially be a linear park where people can come and enjoy, walk, bike, and the pace of vehicle traffic will be slower. And so people will feel more comfortable spending time in that area. It's an investment that is really important for the city, and the money that gets invested will return that investment many times over the course of the lifetime of the project. It happened, there was a streetscape project in downtown Encinitas, and it easily paid for itself fairly quickly. So you can expect that same thing in Leucadia. And, the Carmageddon, I don't think is an issue. And in the end, the safety for pedestrians and bicyclists will be significantly improved.
Thank you, Tony. Councilmember Tony. You will will also rotate again. So this question will go to you first, Councilmember. Do you believe that the Highway 101 streetscape should be put to a vote? With the increase in significant costs during a worldwide recession, would you consider postponing it and putting it on the ballot?
No, I don't think it should go on the ballot. I think that the fact of the matter is that we live in a representative democracy. I've been elected a couple of times. People that elected me knew that I was a strong advocate for the streetscape, and councils before me started the project, and I basically picked up the ball and continued it. I think we've made some adjustments and improvements that includes parking in the railroad corridor. And, so I think that in the end, you know, the folks that are serving currently who support the streetscape were put in the position to vote on it by a majority of the residents of Encinitas, the voters of Encinitas. So that, I think, is the right way to approach this particular project. We are going to pursue this project in a fiscally responsible way. We have gone from a plan to do debt financing to build the whole project. Now we're using the pay-as-you-go approach. We had already budgeted money for the project, and it is available for us to, we just did the bid opening, and it looks like we're going to have a contractor who is bid under the engineer's estimate, so that's a good sign. And so we will get started with phase one, and we will vigorously pursue grant opportunities. There's a high degree of likelihood that in the year ahead, there will actually be infrastructure bills that come out of Washington, D.C. And I think that our project, having 100% shovel-ready plans, is going to be a prime candidate for those grant opportunities that will present themselves. So it's our goal to use other people's money, as they call it, in this business to build the project. And in the end, as I said, there will be a return on the investment that we make in the 101 corridor with the building of streetscape. It's got a lot of support. The loudest folks are the naysayers, and I plan to build it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Alex Riley, same question. How do you believe the Highway 101 streetscape should be, do you think it should be put to a vote? With the increase in significant costs during a worldwide recession, would you consider postponing it and putting it on the ballot?
Yeah, call me a naysayer. I think it should go on the ballot because I don't think most people understand what a boondoggle it's turned into. Most people probably don't know there's going to be a double fence the length of the train tracks. People are going to be cut off from going just a few feet. So where I live, to go 70 feet, I'll have to go over a mile. And we still don't have any planned safe crossings. So like Mr. Kranz said, there is funding out there, and the better plan is lowering the tracks. So I'd like to put both to a vote and let everyone choose for themselves and give them all the correct information. But once again, I can't support streetscape because it will jeopardize public safety, period.
Thank you, Mr. Alex Riley. Alex, you will go first on this question. How do you plan on addressing solving the issues related to climate change? And further, what do you think these issues are, and why do you think these issues are important to the Encinitas residents to solve?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I think we've all been awoken to the real danger of wildfires and the fact that we don't have a proper fire station in Olivenheim. It's gone on too long. They need to have a quick attack ability with a brush rig. They need to have enough firefighters to man it. They also need an engine and an ambulance. If the Goodson project goes through, we will have a Paradise, California situation where there won't be enough exits in the case of a serious emergency. This has to be addressed right away.
Thank you. And Mr. Council Member Tony Kranz, same question. How do you plan on addressing solving the issues related to climate change? And further, why do you think these issues are important to the Encinitas residents to solve?
Well, I think that it's important to keep in mind the old saying about thinking globally and acting locally. And these problems that we're having, environmental issues, are going to be solved city by city. And it's going to take leadership to take the steps necessary to reduce the proverbial carbon footprint. And that means that we will continue to pursue the goals that we established in our climate action plan, one of which, and perhaps one of the more important ones, is the joining of the Community Choice Energy Program, the City of San Diego, and a couple other jurisdictions to be able to for the residents of Encinitas to opt to purchase renewable energy more effectively. And so we're about 3 months away from being active with that program. But ultimately, the biggest contributor to greenhouse gases are from our vehicles, our personally owned automobiles. And so anything that we can do to get people out of their cars is beneficial. And so having a walkable and bikeable community is really critical. And I think that there are many, many opportunities to improve on that. We have taken some really important steps along those lines, but there are many more to do. And so I will continue to pursue all the goals in our climate action plan, including the implementation of more solar on residential homes, as well as microgrids with battery storage so that we can use the solar energy at night by drawing from the battery sources. So we're going to get a lot of work done here in the next 4 years.
Thank you, council member. So this question goes to you for the final question. What are your proposed solutions to the current housing element issue?
Well, I think that, you know, the phrasing of that particular question is that we, you know, haven't solved the problem when in fact we are now compliant with state law. As painful as the process has been, the history that the city has had with the Housing and Community Development Department up in Sacramento has been quite the disaster. And we pushed back hard on them. And ultimately, a judge ordered us to adopt a plan that they would approve, which was really a bummer because they had been alienated. They were out to you know make to obtain everything that they'd always wanted out of the city of Encinitas. So I think that as the housing element is implemented and we see projects come forward, what I'm going to do as a council member is push back very hard on the developers. We've seen a couple of proposals that I think that the developers approached it in a way that was consistent with the desires of the community, which is don't just build this oversized monstrosity. And we've had developers that have proposed density bonus projects that ask for concessions and waivers that I think far exceed what they need. So I'm going to be aggressively questioning all concessions and waivers that come as part of an application for a density bonus project on top of the density that they got as part of the housing element update. So there's some important work ahead. And I think that, you know, my involvement in the process gives me the insight to push back hard. And I'm got many, many years of working with experts and understanding how we got in this box. And I will be working hard to make sure that the results don't destroy our city. So I will be pushing back.
Thank you, council member. Alex Riley, same question. What are your proposed solutions to the current housing element issue?
Well, first I'd like to say, I don't think we've pushed back hard at all. And I don't think the developers are cowering in front of the city council. Like I said earlier, District 1, Northern Leucadia, is targeted for 1,400 units. Only 80 of those units are going to be deemed affordable. That's only 5%. That's not asking anything out of the developers. We also don't require them to provide enough parking. If you want to look to the future and microgrids and electric cars, you're going to need a place to park your electric car and plug it in every night. So the fact that we don't even require enough parking doesn't show that we're serious with the developers. Many people in my neighborhood rely on their vehicles because they're small businessmen and they need it and they're contractors and they need their vehicles. We can't just say, ride your bike with all your plumbing equipment on the back of it. That's very elitist, honestly. So finally, like I said, I doubt the numbers coming from the state in the very first place. We need to start over with honest numbers. And and Leucadia cannot be the #1 dumping zone for all these units.
Thank you, Mr. Alex Riley. So we will move on to the closing statements. Councilmember Krantz, you will be first.
Thank you again for hosting this and allowing me to, answer these questions, and so that you can hear Alex answer as well. Alex, I'm sure, is a nice guy, but he's got answers that don't add up. There are about 1,400 units in the whole housing element, and the inclusionary housing requirement is 15%, and so there will be more inclusionary than he is talking about right there. It's also true that the smaller units are going to be more affordable by design, and could even be considered by the Housing and Community Development Department as acceptable as affordable units. So that's part of the pushback that I think is important in this process. We haven't seen any projects at the City Council yet. So when they get there, they'll know that I'm going to be, I'll tell them now that you're going to have some questions to answer. And in the meantime, when the fire chief comes and talks about the need for new stations or a new operational method, I'm all ears. I'm listening to the experts in fire safety. So I have not heard any requests to evaluate our plans for evacuation. But if it comes forward, I will indeed listen to the chief and do everything that that the experts recommend. In fact, that's the way we do public safety in Encinitas, and we have one of the safest cities in the county. We're a contract city with the sheriff, and we have indeed one of the safest cities in the county. So we will continue that. I will listen to the experts. We spend about $33 million on public safety. Public safety is not a binary issue. People who use the roadways have the ability, they're much more likely to survive if they're hit by a car that is driving slow. And when you put in roundabouts, cars drive slower. So it makes it more survivable. So the public safety benefits of roundabouts and a streetscape project that has first-rate pedestrian facilities as well as bike facilities is that you end up with people feeling safer and being safer. So we will continue to focus on the safety aspects of our road system. We're going to implement state law, which includes complete streets, which means that the roadways are used by not only automobiles, but also bicycles and walkers. And so we have been doing that for the last 8 years, and I will continue to do that. I am honored by the opportunity to serve the city of Encinitas, and I would really appreciate the vote of folks in District 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Tony Krantz. Alex Riley, you have 3 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you. Thank you again for everyone that's watching, and thanks to the Chamber of Commerce. Our town we're about to reach a fork in the road. One decision is to save it from being overbuilt, being overcrowded, and less safe. The other is to continue building, not having enough public safety, and chasing projects that don't pan out in the future and are far too costly. Pacific View School has been sitting there rotting for almost 7 years. We paid $10 million for that. And the city has just now come out with a questionnaire today to ask the residents what we should do with it. They should have known what to do and how to raise the money and how to keep it functional when they paid for it. It's this type of short-sightedness that goes across all these different topics we talked about tonight. If you drive in Olivine, you'll see there's only a couple roads in and out, and there's houses and horses and a lot of brush. If there's a fire out there, it will be devastating. So make your decision. I wish you would check out some of the websites. You'll see that the numbers I quoted tonight are correct about the housing. Upzoning will ruin this town and ruin our neighborhoods. And that's why we all live here in the first place. is for the quality of life, safe neighborhoods, and good schools. All of that is at jeopardy if we continue with the current council. Thank you.
I want to thank Alex Riley and Councilmember Tony Kranz. This will conclude the District 1. I do want to remind everybody something that Sherry, our CEO, reminded me, that the NCS Chamber of Commerce is a ballot drop-off zone. So if you would like to drop in and say hello and drop off your ballot between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., we are a drop-off zone. So I want to thank Alex and Tony, and I will be bringing in our District 2 candidates here shortly.
Thanks, Jim and Alex.
I got a promotion to panelist.
You did. Congratulations, Susan Kelly. You've been promoted. Thank you for bearing with us on getting the technical stuff moving. But I would like to welcome the Deputy Mayor Kelly Hinsey and Susan Turney, who are both for District 2. As we've stated, you'll have 5 minutes for your opening statement. Jim will hold up the timers based on your count. I hope you watched them before to know what it's like. And Deputy Mayor Kelly, you are up first.
Thank you. So good evening, everybody. I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this candidate forum, and hello to everybody who's watching at home. As we draw closer to the election, I hope that you and your loved ones are managing the uncertainty of 2020 with hope and grace and grit. I'm Kelly Hinsey, and for the past nearly 2 years, it's been my honor to serve as your council member. I'm currently serving as the Deputy Mayor, and I'm running to represent District 2, which is officially named Old Encinitas. In the race for District 2, I am the candidate who grew up in Encinitas. I'm the third in 3 generations of my family to live, work, volunteer, and remain actively engaged in District 2. I'm a lifelong resident of Encinitas, graduate of San Diego Academy, Pacific View, Pollock East Central Schools, and I'm proud to represent a district that I've grown up in and hope to grow old in. I became involved in my city's governance and culture as Assistant Director of Leucadia 101 Main Street Association. I found my passion bringing the community together through art, music, and celebration of our local roots and history. For 6 years, I had the pleasure to work alongside the Chamber and my sister Main Street associations and our vibrant small business community at the intersection of historic preservation and revitalization. I eventually applied and was hired as the as the executive director of Leucadia 101 Main Street, where we achieved a lot of huge successes. And the most important one, in my opinion, was bringing the El Portal undercross through the design phase. And today I'm pleased that we're on the verge of finally breaking ground this year on this community's first safe, legal, and beautiful rail undercrossing. I urge you to research my candidacy. When you do, you'll find reputable leaders, including Congressmember Mike Levin, the Sierra Club, Encinitas Firefighters Association, and the League of Conservation Voters supporting me. You can visit my website, kellyforencinitas.com, to see the complete list, and my name is spelled Kellie. I'm proud to have earned their support through my proven track record of being inclusive, solution-oriented, and ethical. If elected, I'm committed to fighting for safe, walkable routes to school, healthy oceans and beaches, strengthening our small business economy, and ensuring your exceptional quality of life. My opponent and I have many different divergent views. I support the long-awaited community improvements such as the El Portal undercross and the safety, trees, comfortable sidewalks and crossings that will come with the North Coast Highway 101 streetscape. We also differ on the best path forward for our future housing policy. Encinitas has tried to fight new development for 30 years, and we haven't been successful. With very few exceptions, the result of any new housing in our city benefits only the most wealthy. It's painful to watch the state step in and dictate where housing should go, especially because we could have avoided this. I support Prop A as it's a law in our city, but as we've seen, this measure alone will not protect Encinitas from overdevelopment. We must finally take control to ensure affordability. Creating housing for the middle class is our responsibility. It's something we should plan for rather than plan to fight against. When it comes to housing, continuing down the same path we've been on for 30 years will not lead to progress. And in fact, we've seen that it's reckless. The state has made it abundantly clear that we must comply with state law. We can't afford to continue down that dead-end path any longer. I'm running to represent the many voters in Encinitas who wish not to return to an era of dysfunction. Over the course of my campaign, I hear time and again from residents who want their city leaders to invest our time, energy, and resources into incrementally creating affordable housing and improvements for our residents, not waste them to losing lawsuits and kicking the can down the road as state law only become more severe. Over the next hour, I look forward to discussing the topics most important to District 2 and to earning your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mary. Mary, there we go. It was bound to happen. Susan Turney, your 5 minutes for your opening statement. Susan, you are on mute, which I can unmute for you. I can try to do it from my side if that will help.
I
There we
got
go.
it. Is that good? Got it?
Yes, sorry, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you to the Chamber. I'm Susan Turney, running for City Council, Encinitas City Council, District 2. I'm a 20-year Encinitas resident, and I've been active in Encinitas politics for over 15 years. I've worked hard to improve projects that threaten public safety, for increased transparency, and for housing plans that truly fulfill the spirit of housing law. The 2013 Prop A campaign was actually run out of my living room. Prop A gives us the right to vote on increases in density and height over 30 feet. We hear a lot that experience counts, and I agree. So let's take a look at my experience. Please visit my, my LinkedIn profile, to give you some information about myself. I've owned a manufacturing business. I've been one of those mom and pops my opponent talks about visiting. I've earned an MBA and spent more than 20 years in corporate management at both Hewlett-Packard and Illumina. The Hewlett-Packard compliance budget that I oversaw was in the hundreds of millions of dollars, many times larger than Encinitas's budget. I'm entering local politics now near the end of my work career, when I believe that experience counts the most, especially when representing a district with more than 10,000 people. I'm running now because it seems that resident concerns with their current representatives are running at an all-time high. Because I acknowledge this, I've been accused of running a campaign based on fear. This completely ignores the fact that the fear is real, it's justified, and it's widespread. It's a strange world we live in when reality is called fear. I'm registered no party preference. I'm asked that a lot, about that a lot. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I left the party over the affordable housing sham. I'm proud not to be beholden to the party, and I think it's regrettable that the current city council has chosen partisanship over Encinitas. On council, I'll bring a common sense approach to problem solving and a commitment to listening to residents. My opponent voted with the mayor 100% of the time in 2020 and most of the time with her in 2019. Quickly made unanimous votes come from groupthink. In contrast, I believe that independent viewpoints foster healthy discussion, better outcomes, and more inclusivity with the residents. I'll fight to retain local control. I believe we can both comply with state law and create more affordable housing with fewer units and still retain our Prop A right to vote. But because the current council has catered to developers, we're falling far short of the affordable numbers that the state is requiring of us. And in fact, we're supposed to be building affordable, not moderate rate income housing, not middle class housing. In fact, with the Goodson project, we're seeing that the 149 affordable units that the city promised the state and residents, we're getting just 42 affordable units. That's quite a shortfall. I think we can fight local control, absolutely, for local control by joining other cities. I'm a contributing member of a statewide coalition of cities called Livable California, and I'm proud to say we just killed 7 of the 9 worst housing bills in the last few months. It can be done. Creating housing plans that are acceptable to the state and uniting with other cities against bad laws is what true leadership looks like. So while my opponent is saying her hands are tied, I'm busy untying them. Deferred infrastructure maintenance threatens public safety and the environment. Climate change is real and something to be taken very seriously, but we cannot call ourselves truly green without addressing Leucadia drainage, taking a systematic, not Band-Aid approach. The maintenance has been deferred for decades. Deferred maintenance on roads citywide. The 11 to Cardiff main sewer trunk that is leaking raw sewage into San Elijo Lagoon. Unanimous approvals of environmentally threatening projects such as the recently approved La Costa 48 that the Sierra Club calls in a warning letter to the city, quote, a continuing and unmitigated threat to the Bataquitas Lagoon. Details on all of these came to light only because residents made public record acts requests, not because the city is discussing these openly in public. Good governance depends on true transparency. Residents should not be the last to learn about projects that affect them directly. Transparency means not going into meetings to vote with a predetermined outcome, unevenly applied rules, hidden agendas, and unnecessary closed session meetings. We can find a new way to run the city that is fully inclusive of residents and doesn't play party or project favorites. You'll hear from my opponent that now during COVID is not the time to change city leadership. Given what I hear from constituents and what I hear for myself, now's the best time for change.
Thank you, Susie.
All right, thank you to both candidates. Again, we will move into the questions part. And I do want to note that no candidates at any point in this debate or forum have seen any of these questions. But I will ask the first one. Deputy Mayor, you will answer the first question first, and then we'll switch and rotate. You will both answer the same questions. You'll have 2 minutes for each question. So the first question is, are you considering joining forces with the cities across the statewide who are for a livable California to avoid unchecked tax increases, regulation, and overdevelopment?
You know, I think that there's a lot to be said for this Livable Cities Coalition. I think that it might have started off benefiting only just homeowners who are the stakeholders and not bringing in, you know, other stakeholders who are renters and, you know, the next generation of California residents. But I am seeing this coalition build those partnerships, and I think that that's encouraging. I think in Encinitas, we benefit from state legislators, Tasha Berner-Horvath, who had my seat before me, who is so intimately familiar with the struggles in Encinitas to achieve this compliance for state housing. So I think that we have state legislators in our corner who are, anybody who knows Tasha knows how familiar she is with the ins and outs of land use. And I think that's what it comes down to. We know we have to create this affordable housing. We know we have to create housing for the middle class. And we know that we need to make sure that that's consistent with our community character, even though Encinitas is so very different from any of the other cities in our county. So achieving those things is going to take somebody who's attuned with it, somebody like Tasha, who does a fantastic job representing us on the state level. I have a very good relationship with Tasha. I talk with her frequently. I let her know some of the challenges that we're facing. And it's been through this partnership with our state legislators that we've been able to author legislation like our Granny Flat bill that have been able to legalize a lot of those existing housing units that we have that provide affordable housing stock. So yes, I support partnerships with the state. I don't know exactly if the Livable California is the right approach for us, but I do have confidence that our state legislators are representing us well.
Susan, same question. Are you considering joining forces with other cities across the state who are for a livable California to avoid unchecked tax increases, regulation, and overdevelopment?
Absolutely. So I'm at least a 2-year member of Livable California. I'm on their weekly calls, and I was actually invited to join a breakout group of elected officials only from up and down the state. We've got Mayor of Redondo Beach on the calls, Mayor of Newport Beach, all the way up to the Bay Area. We're a side working group, so every Sunday I spend 2 hours going through legislation with them and looking at the best ways to counter the overreach from Sacramento. I'd like to say something about the affordable units. We do have an ADU, a Granny Flat program, and that's a good thing. However, they're not as affordable at 1,200 square feet as they might have been at the 800 square foot minimum that we could have required instead of going to 1,200. The other issue with those is that only 25% of them count toward our RENA, our affordable housing number. So if you have 100 granny flat applications, just 25 will count toward that number. So again, Livable's a fantastic group. They've got attorneys, they've got journalists, they've got electeds from up and down the state actively working together. I get tons of emails every day from them, and they are making headway. And so in closing, I'm doing it myself. I'm not going, I would lobby Tasha, of course, but I'm not going to rely on her.
Thank you. And so Susan, you will go first on this next question, and you'll have 2 minutes, of course. So there have been questions on the safety along Cardiff section of Highway 101 for bicyclists. What plans or possible solutions will you propose to help improve the current design for increasing safety for pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles?
So rip it out. The reports of the accidents are now up to 20 on the Please Restore Cardiff Safe Cycling to Cardiff. These are not anecdotal. These are people going to the hospital. There are photos with ambulances and paramedics responding. One fellow who went to the hospital and had some broken bones was told by his wife was told by the mayor that it's a learning curve. Something is clearly wrong with the design. Cyclists from our local Olympian, Sean Wallace, to recreational cyclists are having serious issues with it. They're afraid for the time when, someone was killed recently. I can't say that I would attribute that to the cycle track. I don't know if it is or not. But absolutely take it out, go back and work with the cycling coalitions who warned against this design in the first place. These are experienced riders who foretold up front everything that was going to happen is happening, and it's not safe for pedestrians. It's not the drivers are telling us they're freaked out, and it's not used very much because people are staying away from it now.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, same question. There have been questions on the safety along Cardiff section of Highway 101 for cyclists. What plans or possible solutions will you propose to improve the current design for increasing the safety in pedestrians for cyclists and vehicles?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that with change, there always comes this learning period of figuring out how it's being used and how it's working. And I think that there are some things that we can do to improve the overall comfortability and approachability of this corridor. One would be to bring down the speed limit even further. So with the approval of this project, we were able to bring down the speed limit for cars through this corridor. I think that bringing the speed limit down even more would be helpful. It's not actually the speed that dictates how quickly cars are able to get through that corridor. It's the timing of the lights. And so oftentimes you can bring down the speed, retime the lights, and you don't have any delays to autos. I think that and people drive slowly anyways through that corridor because it's so beautiful. Another strategy that could make it even better is to create another pedestrian crossing at the border of Solana Beach and Encinitas. We would need to work together with our partners in the city of Solana Beach, but I think that that is something that we can achieve. I invite my opponent to go down there and check it out. To say that it's not being used is a gross misrepresentation in that it is so heavily used that we now have competing bicycle interests. So before voting to approve this project, I spent a lot of time down here. I think a lot of people already know that my primary way of commuting around town is that I am a bike rider. And so I looked at this stretch through different eyes. I looked at it as a driver, I looked at it as a pedestrian, and I looked at it as a cyclist. And I have seen now there's so much more variety and diversity in the types of users that are welcomed here. I've checked in with the local businesses. How's this been for your business? Las Olas says that business is booming. They're doing great. They have expanded bike parking on the side. And it's somewhere that I would have never gone after dark in the past due to the sea smoke and the mist and some of the other challenges with this corridor. But now it's so friendly, it's so welcoming, and I have no qualms about hopping on my bike after dark to go down there and enjoy eating at a restaurant like Las Olas. So it is unfortunate there have been some collisions, but this likely was during construction.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So for the next question, you will be first. So How do you view your relationship with residents of your district? Do you feel that you do or would make decisions that reflect what the majority of residents desire?
Yes. So you put yourself out there as a candidate and you never really know how it will be received. Of course, through 6 years at the Main Street, having grown up in this community, having volunteered for a variety of different organizations, I have a lot of relationships with stakeholders in the community, and to have their support and to be able to thread the needle through some of these challenges we face, balancing public safety and business, balancing safe routes to school, and needing extra space for, pickup of food lines is something that the schools have been doing right now is, I think it's a talent of mine. I think building diverse stakeholder groups is something that I've had a lot of experience doing successfully. I've been so pleased at the way the community has received my candidacy. You see it in contributions far exceeding, races of this size in the past. I see it in just the excitement and the energy around my campaign. I'm so pleased to wake up in the morning and check social media and see that people are excited and hopeful about the kind of leadership that I'll bring. I think that being somebody who's young on council, being somebody who grew up here and whose family has really deep roots is, an asset. And I get it time and again, even if I had somebody stop me the other day and say, I'm a lifelong Republican. I don't always agree with your decisions, but I'm voting for you because I know you, I've seen your commitment, and I know you always listen to me.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Susan Turney, please, same question is, how do you view your relationship with residents of your district? Do you feel that you do or would make decisions that reflect what the majority of residents desire?
Sure. I would only make decisions that reflect what they desire. I've worked alongside residents on local density bonus projects, pushing to get speed bumps in, trying to get speed bumps in on some streets. We were not ultimately successful. I actually met Alex Riley fighting a density bonus project near him. The project ended up being scaled back and was a better fit for the neighborhood. And so, I really feel for people when I see them going in front of council. These are grown men and women almost crying. They are begging. The words that are coming out of their mouths are, "You don't listen to us. You're steamrolling over us." When neighbors are the last to find out about a project in their back, that they share a property line with, that is not a relationship with residents that I would have. I don't know how else to put it more strongly. You've got to listen to the people. It's great to listen to the businesses. I was one of those businesses. I understand the challenges, but to just sort of gloss over things, and when people come to you with an issue and a problem, and you tell them you're the only one to complain about this to me. I've heard this about some folks on council. That is dead wrong. Everyone's problem is worth hearing about and worth doing something about.
Thank you very much. So next question will also go to you, Susan. How do you plan on addressing solving the issue related to climate change? And further, why do you think these issues are important to the Encinitas residents to solve?
Sure. So climate change is real. Climate change is threatening the entire planet. And I do believe that the efforts to address climate change have to start in Encinitas. We've got the issue I mentioned earlier with the sewer line from Olivenhain to Cardiff leaking raw sewage. We've got the La Costa 48 that was just approved unanimously by this council over the objections of the Bataquitas Lagoon Foundation and the Sierra Club, who came forward with science showing that the project would further threaten the lagoon. We've got the Leucadia streetscape at the north end. The plan is to send untreated water into the lagoon, the heavier metals. Right now, we haven't addressed the Leucadia drainage effectively or at all. So we're actually pumping untreated water from Leucadia Roadside Park over the hill straight onto the beach. So wonderful to do. I think we have to have a climate action plan. We should have a climate action plan. I've worked from home for the last 15 years, so I'm very cognizant of getting into my car as little as possible. But aside from that, we have to take care of business at home, and that's how we do our part. Then we can look outside and look larger.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor, same question to you is how do you plan on addressing, solving the issues related to climate change, and further, why are these issues for the Encinitas residents important to solve?
This is a great question, and I am very familiar with our gold standard climate action plan because this is a guiding policy document for us to be able to decide how we make decisions. Our largest source of emissions comes from our on-road transportation. So just focusing on that, over 50% of emissions from on-road transportation, and couple that with the biggest request that we get as council members to make streets friendlier and safer for walking and biking. Mode shift is the way that we can replace car trips with bike trips that don't generate greenhouse gases. So this is not an attempt to get everybody out of their cars. This is only an attempt to get people who want to be out of their cars to be able to do that. If we can just get 10% of cars off of our streets, we've solved two problems. One is traffic congestion, and then the other one is reducing our greenhouse gases. Why should Encinitas residents care about climate change? Well, there are studies that show that by the year 2100, 66% of beaches in Southern California will be gone if we don't act. So what we have the responsibility to do as council members is to simultaneously bring down our GHGs, figure out ways to decarbonize electricity and power, but also build our resiliency, build our resiliency against storm, against fire, against drought, against flood, and also to ensure that we have beaches for the next generation to enjoy.
Thank you very much for that. We'll move on to the next question where Deputy Mayor, you will be answering first. What are your proposed solutions to the current housing element issue?
Yeah, I think this is probably a question that most Encinitas residents want to know. So for years and years, the city has been, building a dam of a backlog. And so right now we're on the verge of seeing a whole bunch of development. And I think that's really uncomfortable for a lot of people. I think with Prop A, the passage of Prop A, for a long time, we've all been under this belief that with new housing, do we want it or do we not want it? So the question that residents believe that we've all been asked is, shall we say yes to new housing or shall we say no to new housing? And that was never the question. And the question has always been how to new housing. And so when I look at the future of Encinitas, I would like to go back to where we were when we started this discussion, which is coming up with a specific plan for our El Camino Real corridor. This is already a built up corridor. It's already very underutilized and excessive surface parking, excessive building footprints. A lot of these leases for big box stores are going to be coming up soon. And we have property owner interest to figure out how to build more housing here along this corridor. It's transit oriented. It means fewer car trips will be generated by the people that live there. It's becoming more walkable every day. It's the right place for more housing. So that's one strategy. The other strategy is to continue to build our program with ADUs. This program and its popularity has not slowed down. And so as long as we're insisting that, as long as we're making it easy for residents to build ADUs and we're ensuring that they can take part as our affordable housing stock, we have two strategies that I think will get us through future housing element cycles without having to do and end up where we are right now, which is high density housing in neighborhoods.
Thank you very much. Susan, same question to you is how do you, what are your proposed solutions to the current housing element issue?
Sure. So first of all, to just go back in time very, very briefly, the two plans that were put before us, measures T and U, were full of developer giveaways. They exceeded the state requirements on height, on density, on setback, on parking, and residents said no. When they found out that these plans were giving away more than the state required, they very naturally said no. Now we're in a position where the city has taken a point of view where they're going to blame our Prop A right to vote for us saying no to housing. We said no to deceptive plans. The amount of affordability required in both could have been increased, and that is what I would do going forward, is take the city's own consultants' recommendations, put an absolutely stripped down plan in front of residents, no extra height, no extra density, no extra units, nothing the state is not requiring. Ask for require a higher percent of affordable housing. So we're doing the minimum at just 15% now. If we go to 25% on some properties, which our city's own study has said, our own consultant said we could go to 25%, That saves 2,000 units over the number required to net back down to the 838 units. So again, with the granny flats, 25% of them count toward our affordable allocation. And the other thing, as Alex mentioned earlier, the Embarcadero Institute just came out with a report. San Diego Union reported on it, that shows that the RENA numbers have been double counted. We shouldn't be doing any planning until we go to Sandag. Sandag goes to the state, and all of the agencies demand a reforecast of the plan.
Thank you, Susan. We have one last question here, and so Susan, you will go first. Is your turn. Do you believe the Highway 101 streetscape should be put to a vote with the increase in significant costs during a worldwide recession? Would you consider postponing it and putting it on the ballot?
Yes, I absolutely believe it should be put to a vote. It's interesting, I just went and visited the folks at Leucadia 101 earlier this week to just get some information on the streetscape plan. And we were told that most Leucadians support streetscape. And when I asked for clarification on that, I got the answer that 80% of Leucadians who like to walk and bike support streetscape. That's different than all Leucadians. That kind of money, 55 million plus, and by the way, I have the 55 million in writing from city staff, that needs to go to a vote of the people. The other issue with it is the EIR itself says that emergency response times will be slowed. That's absolutely not acceptable. And I've spoken with a number of representatives of biking coalitions. They're absolutely terrified that when they are going from 2 lanes down to 1, they go into what has been referred to as a Cuisinart roundabout. They have to suddenly merge with cars. Their other option is to pop up onto the sidewalk and join pedestrians. If you add in e-bikes, scooters, little kids, dogs, you name it, it's a recipe for disaster. So I really think it needs another look at the design, a relook at the costs. We can attain safety for less money. Slowing traffic, absolutely. The speed cushions at South near Juanita's, I'll refer to it that way. I think those are great and they seem to work. And narrowing the lanes naturally slows traffic, but don't get rid of them. Widen the bicycle lane so folks can get out of the way of the doors. I think there's a lot we can do for a lot less money and make it a lot safer.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, same question is, do you believe the Highway 101 streetscape should be put to a vote with the increase in significant costs during a worldwide recession? Would you consider postponing it and putting it on the ballot?
I think every time we have an election here in the city of Encinitas, streetscape is on the ballot. This is always the question for any candidate who is running to serve our city. And we have had generations and generations of Encinitas City Council members support this project. This project, I see it like a relay from one generation passing the baton to the next generation, and the planning and the neighborhood input and the recruitment of all the different perspectives that have gone into this project is immense. It's in fact the city's largest project for public engagement and input that we've ever embarked on. That being said, it is not the city's most expensive project. So there have been projects the city has undertaken that have been more expensive than streetscape. Part of the reason why the city incorporated in the first place was to take this stretch of road that's our town square, our community gathering place, and the lifeblood of our Main Street community, take it back into the control of residents and decide together how the street should act. We're taking a 4-lane highway that has so many problems with it, and we're turning it into a country road that's going to be shaded, it's going to have wide sidewalks, it's going to have crossings. It's not true that the only other option for a bike is to ride on the sidewalk. There's actually a multi-use path between the street and the rail that's planned as part of this project. Over the years, we have been able to scale down the cost of streetscape. One is that the temporary parking pods that will provide more parking for the businesses across the street have been scaled down. So those are a more rustic version, so that if in the future, if money comes through to underground the tracks, we'll be able to just pull those out. And it's not gonna be that, expensive project in that way. I think that the other thing to consider is that if you ask people, do you like the streetscape? They might say, oh, I don't know, I have to think about that or do more research. But if you ask them, Do you want dedicated bike lanes? Do you want a 10-foot sidewalk instead of a 4-foot sidewalk? Do you want public art opportunities? There we go.
Thank you for abiding by the rules as well to all the candidates. But thank you. So we're going to move into the closing statements. And so Deputy Mayor, you will be first on the closing statements. You'll have 3 minutes. And Jim will have the time as usual.
Okay, thank you. I just want to close again by thanking everyone who put the time into organizing this forum. I know the Chamber of Commerce has some staff members, but so much volunteer effort goes into all that you do. So I want to thank the volunteer board of directors. I'd like to thank the small business community of Encinitas. I have worked at 6 small businesses in Encinitas since I grew up here. My first job was a security guard for Mad Potter at nighttime because I caught somebody stealing pots from the shop and they hired me to keep an eye out there at nighttime. So I've always had my eyes on the main street. I've always been part of our small business community. I'd like to thank all the voters who took the time to hear directly from the candidates on key issues. As your local government, we've really faced an unprecedented set of challenges in 2020, and I'm proud to serve on a city council that has risen to that challenge with competency. We've kept Encinitas in the 3rd or 4th lowest case count of COVID among the 18 cities in San Diego County. Over this past 45 minutes, we've heard some policy ideas that sound really good in theory, but I've learned from experience that solutions must be based in reality and they must be driven by community consensus. The clearest example of this is our affordable housing policy. In closing, I would like to encourage voters not to buy into the attacks, rumors, and downright lies that are already swirling. This misinformation is rooted in fear. In every election cycle, we see candidates using the same old fear-based tactic, telling you that things are horrible, that they'll only get worse unless you vote for them, of course. And I'm not going to tell you that. Instead, I ask you to vote for me based on your hope for the future of Encinitas, because I still believe that we live in a wonderful city and we have so much to look forward to. If I earn your vote, I pledge to foster unity and civility as we work together to make great strides. Please vote for me, Kelly Hinsey, for Encinitas City Council, District 2, on or before November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Susan, you also have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Through my career, I've gained a thorough understanding of how large organizations with multiple functions operate and cooperate. This deep knowledge is essential when dealing with issues where the public and the government intersect. Having participated in hundreds of hours of city meetings alongside residents from all over Encinitas, I've learned to take a deep look into issues and not take staff reports at face value. Many of the items and the information we've uncovered has had a great impact on decisions made by the Planning Commission and by the City Council. I'm a homeowner, and I understand that when overdevelopment threatens, I can't just pick up and move, and I shouldn't have to. Doing the absolute most to preserve community character is central not just to my campaign, but to everything I've worked for the last 15 years. We can have more affordable housing with fewer units and satisfy the state and voters. We can keep our Prop A right to vote. I know this is possible because other cities with the same voter requirements do it. We just have to have the political will on this council to make it happen. Prop A cannot be taken lightly. It was passed in 2013 by a majority of voters with hundreds of volunteers getting the word out. It was a colossal effort. It's a right that citizens enjoy under the California State Constitution. In fact, in 1911, the state constitution adopted the initiative process. The quote is, "It was drafted in light of the theory that all power of government ultimately resides in the people. The amendment speaks of the initiative and referendum not as a right granted the people, but as a power reserved by them." Make no mistake, the lawsuit this council redirected away from residents and against the state still seeks to remove our Prop A right to vote on all future housing elements. As these updates represent virtually all high-density upzoning we'll see in Encinitas, removing it only for updates will be in real terms, removing it for good. I will continue to push back on state laws that threaten our local control. I will never tell you not enough people have complained in order for something to be done. I will always put your safety and neighborhood concerns above developer profits. I will never make unanimous council votes a goal. I will maintain complete transparency at all times. I have the temperament and the experience to stand up for you. I promise never to put my personal preferences and beliefs over those of residents. This is what I call real representation, and I'm ready to get started. Please visit me online, Susan Turney for Encinitas.org, and please vote for me. Thank you.
I want to thank Susan Turney and Deputy Mayor Kelly Hinsey. This concludes the District 2. Very much appreciate you both and the answers you gave. I will be moving you guys back to the attendees and be bringing up the next. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We're up to our last main event here. We will have, it's the mayor candidates. Give me 1 second as we bring them in. Once they're in, I will introduce both of them. All right. All right, we are on our last section of candidates here. I would like to introduce Mayor Catherine Blakespear and Julie Thunder. As I hope you've probably noticed, you'll have 5 minutes for introductions or opening statements. We'll move into questions and have a closing statement. Jim has been giving you a heads up on the time, so please be cautious and cognizant of that. But you know, I would like to basically get started here. Mayor Catherine Blakespear, your 5 minutes in opening statements. You're up first.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for having me here today. I am thrilled to be speaking directly to you. So thank you for the opportunity to the Chamber. It's been my great honor and privilege to have served as your Encinitas mayor for the last 4 years. And I'm running for re-election today to continue our successes. During my time on the Encinitas City Council and as the mayor, we've really been on a roll. We have made tremendous neighborhood improvements. We've prioritized the public's health, and we have a safe and a financial my leadership, saying that I am destroying the community with overdevelopment, crime, homeless people, and mismanagement of stormwater, road improvements, and truthfully, almost everything else. Listen to what she says today. It is a nonstop criticism of the city. This is really fear-mongering, and it's rooted in negativity and lies. It's a classic campaign strategy to try to make you feel that Encinitas is a bad place to live, and it's a city that's headed in the wrong direction, and that somehow she can save us. Does that sound familiar? She's actually playing on nostalgia, promising to stop all new housing and return to a mythical Encinitas that never actually existed in the first place. I understand the uncertainty that we are all feeling in this moment, making us yearn for the good old days on multiple levels. It's really an understandable feeling, but when you look around yourself in Encinitas, don't you love our city? I routinely hear how great our city is and how happy people are with the improvements that we're making. I'm from a family that's been in Encinitas for 100 years. I'm 4th generation and our kids are 5th generation. I understand the heartbeat of our city. I feel the heartbeat of our city. And there are no simple answers to the concerns about development, traffic, homelessness, and climate change. I tackle these problems by leading with our strengths, by keeping things in harmony. I'm always working to both preserve and then enhance our city. When you look back at my 4 years as mayor, there are several things that are clear. The first one is that Encinitas remains safe and financially stable. Since I've been the mayor since 2016, total crime has decreased by 1/3. The city has also benefited from a huge number of community improvements. I'll just list a few of them that have been built while I've been your mayor. The Coastal Rail Trail, a new park, Olympus Park in Leucadia, under construction now, the protected bike lanes on Highway 101 headed to Solana Beach, the art mosaics and bike and pedestrian paths at Santa Fe Drive and Encinitas Boulevard under the freeway, paths in Alevenheim, a railroad undercrossing in Leucadia just went out to bid, a railroad quiet zone, first in the city, 4 acres of new sand on the beach, and our city's largest project, breaking ground in a few short months, is Leucadia Streetscape. I'm a collaborative, open-minded, hardworking, analytic, and data-driven mayor. I also have a heart and I lead with compassion. I recognize diversity as a value and I give it voice through my actions. I care about helping our neighbors who find themselves without a home, and I proudly supported a parking lot for those who had lost their homes but still had a car in order for them to receive services and stay safely overnight. I also have great relationships with elected officials at all levels, my colleagues on the City Council, and other professional leaders. I've been selected by my peers to be in leadership at the county's largest organization, the SANDAG, the Regional Transportation Organization. As your mayor, I have been simultaneously fighting for your quality of life, protecting our community character, protecting your right to vote, while also complying with state housing laws. These things are difficult. There is not some magic backdoor solution that my opponent has access to that somehow eludes me and the rest of us. I'm the environmental candidate in this race. I was endorsed by the Sierra Club, the League of Conservation Voters, and this year I won the Climate Courage Award from the Climate Action Campaign for my leadership in working locally to fight climate change. My commitment to public safety has earned me the endorsement of the Encinitas Firefighters Association. As we go through this forum tonight, please think about whether you really want to dismantle the great things we've done in Encinitas. I don't think most residents do. Thank you for being here tonight, and I would be honored to have your support for my reelection as your Encinitas mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Blackspear. Julie Thunder, you have 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody that's attending tonight and to the chamber organizers for putting this event together. Encinitas has been my home for 30 years. My husband and I are invested in Encinitas with our money, our time, and our hearts. We raised our 4 daughters here and someday hope to watch them raise our grandchildren here. As you can see, I have a personal stake in keeping our town safe from crime, environmental harm, and overdevelopment. I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in Applied Mathematics from SDSU, go Aztecs. I have a secondary teaching credential. I ran a small custom software business from my home for years and later served on the Cardiff School District Bond Committee, the first one, not the current one. And I served on the boards of local sports leagues. Today, I'm the publisher. Encinitas is worth fighting for. That's why I'm running for mayor, to keep Encinitas a beach town, not a big town. My opponent likes to say, quote, "We're a well-run city." Well, if that's the case, why are we tangled up in nearly 20 lawsuits, many of them a direct result of actions taken by our current mayor and council? She also says, quote, "We're one of the safest cities in America." Well, if that's so, why did SANDAG and the FBI just publish their mid-year report showing violent crime in Encinitas is up 58%, while in the same time period, Solana Beach and Carlsbad are down? And don't forget the excuses we've heard that my hands are tied, end quote, when referring to reversing our votes. Those of us who are invested in Encinitas want a different future for our town. Like all of you, I want safe roads for both bikes and cars. Like you, I want to protect our lagoons from filthy runoff. Like you, I want our beaches to be safe. And like you, I want a more resident-focused city hall. As your mayor, I will place public safety first. My support for law enforcement has earned me the coveted endorsement of the Deputy Sheriff's Association. I will never support defunding the police. I'm not anti-growth. I want our town to grow, but in a more measured and managed way. Let's work together, you and I, and to find affordable housing solutions that don't sacrifice the very town we've come to love. Let's preserve the unique character of Encinitas that attracted us to live here in the first place. But politics sometimes gets in the way of moving in the right direction. My opponent is very proud of her 100-year family legacy in Encinitas. She should be, and so should her children. But we all have a family legacy somewhere. My great-great-grandfather traveled west with my great-great-grandmother and their children. He wore a 6-shooter and drove a covered wagon. But that doesn't make me a good shot or a good wagon driver. All stakeholders should have an equal voice in this city, regardless of how long their families have been around. Some are trying to throw national politics into this race, but that doesn't belong here. In fact, that's what is wrong right now in our city. Too many decisions are being made through the lens of political partisanship. I'm here to bring our town back to the middle. I became an independent because I didn't want to run for office influenced by a political party. I think Encinitas has had enough partisan politics, and I want to be part of the movement that brings us back to the center, back to a place where decisions that are made with a community first agenda, not a party agenda. My willingness to be friendly and cooperative with people from both sides of the aisle is why I'm endorsed by several past mayors, several city commissioners, taxpayer advocates, public safety officials, and other community leaders. All of them are Democrats, Republicans, and independents. Honestly, once I spoke with Sheila Cameron, Pam Slater-Price, and Mark Muir, all in the same day. Not one of them asked my party affiliation before offering their advice to me. Not one of them asked for promises before making suggestions, but they have supported me in my campaign for mayor because they know I get along with people and I can work with others, regardless of political persuasion. And they all know how much I care about Encinitas. If you supported my opponent in the past, please listen with an open heart tonight. I know it can be hard to change, but with 6 years in office, it might be time for some fresh ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie Thunder and Mayor Blakespear. So we'll move on to the questions. Mayor Blakespear, you will be up first on this first question. Again, there'll be 2 minutes while I'm asked the same question to both of you. We each have 2 minutes to answer, and we'll rotate whose turn it is first. So Mayor Blakespear, the El Camino corridor is a major resource for funding within the city of Encinitas. There have been discussions regarding the El Camino corridor with regards to pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicle uses. Please explain your vision for this important economic corridor.
Well, that's a good question. I think the El Camino Real corridor has a lot of different potential. I mean, as the changing face of retail is a reality, I think that we need to be considering mixed use opportunities there, which would allow it for us to have some commercial on the bottom and housing on the top. And I think it's also important that people be able to get where they need to go inside their car and outside their car. So I've been really dedicated to making the city more bikeable and walkable. There's a hunger among our residents to have that. And even when you look at the El Camino Real corridor and all the residential development to the east of it, you see that people are really eager to be able to get to the coffee shops and the market and all the different commercial uses that they want on the El Camino Real corridor. So I am very interested in working with the community to see what we could actualize that corridor into being. And I think it has quite a lot of different potentials.
Thank you very much. Julie Thunder, you same question, which is the El Camino Real corridor is a major resource for funding within the city of Encinitas. There have been discussions regarding the El Camino corridor with regards to pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicle uses. Please explain your vision for this important economic corridor.
Well, my vision would be your vision. The businesses that need to thrive there is who I would want to talk to. I would want to know what you think would work better. I think people on this call are there every day and they see exactly how their customers are using their business and how they're getting there. What I wouldn't do is something like that Z crossing that the city has planned between Kohl's and CVS or the Ralph's and Trader Joe's shopping center. That just doesn't make sense. Traffic's already a problem there, and you never see people trying to cross, and there's a crosswalk on each end. So I'm really concerned about that, and I hope you guys are, people who have businesses in that area are involved in that crossing. So my vision is your vision. I believe representative government means exactly that. It means I'm here to represent you and what you think would work best and balance out with what the city can afford. Thank you.
Thank you. We are rotating, so Julie Thunder, you will be up next on this question. The city of Encinitas was recently sued due to the fatal bluff failure last year. What plans do you have for taking action, if any, to help secure the bluff and protect the beach users?
Oh, can I start? Okay. Um, I'm deeply disappointed that our city has done nothing to improve safety at that beach. I'm shocked. And everybody in our city should be shocked. You've all seen the pictures of all summer long, people hung out on all the beaches, including Cardiff, on our bluffline beaches too, which is not the city's responsibility, and I know that. But people laid right up against the bluffs, even sitting under overhangs. And nobody told them that's not safe and shooed them away. That is not right. We have visitors coming to our beach that aren't from here and don't know what the real danger is. I know the lifeguards were asked to let people know, but a lifeguard can't keep looking behind him. His job is to look in front at who's in the water. So I do support the legislation that was recently submitted or proposed by Senator Bates. And that legislation allows homeowners on the bluff to do minor repairs to the bluff, like removing invasive plant species, that heavy ice plant that actually brings the bluffs down sometimes. It also allows homeowners to repair faulty irrigation. There was a part of that that allowed seawalls that's being renegotiated because it wasn't clear on allowing what type of seawalls and how they meant to address that. That legislation also, when homeowners want to make changes or repairs to their bluff to make them safer, the homeowner pays a fee, and that fee goes to a sand replenishment program. Also, the sand replenishment coming, which is very good, doesn't even address the bluff where the beaches where the accident was. The sand replenishment is going to start way south of that. So we have a serious problem. I'm ready to get started on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Blakespear. Same question, which is the city of Encinitas was recently sued due to the fatal bluff failure last year. What plans do you have for taking action, if any, to help secure the bluff and protect the beach users?
Yes, well, first, we were heartbroken by the death of 3 members of one family when the bluff collapsed on them one afternoon. It was just over a year ago. I can think of nothing worse, and we really just mourned with them and continue to. The bluffs cannot be armored because of the Coastal Commission requirements. So our options are to do a sand replenishment projects and also to be safer around the bluffs. And so I'm really happy and proud and grateful to our Congressman Mike Levin, who was able to get a long stalled sand replenishment project started. And we were able to unlock a state grant because we have federal money now for that project. And you know, sand travels south over time. So where it's placed is strategic because it has to fit in with the marine ecology and habitat. And then it washes back up onto the beach in the summer and goes in the winter. And you know, our lifeguards routinely contact people who are near the bluffs. We have increased our signage. We have there's a uniform sign. That's the sign that we are allowed to use at the beach. And we have a lot more signage. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to ask people to leave from where they are, but I have done that repeatedly, trying to say, hey, you know, you're really close to the bluff, and we recently had an accident in our city and you might want to move. And people can be quite hostile, and also a lot of times are just not interested in hearing your feedback like that. So I do understand why it is that the lifeguards might reach out and then people would still be sitting there. But it is the practice of our lifeguards to be contacting people and ensuring that they are safely using the beaches at all times.
Thank you very much. We'll go to the next question where Mayor Blakespear, you will be answering first. Fire is a threat to many of our communities. How will you support and improve our fire prevention and response efforts within our higher fire zones?
Yes, fire is a threat, and I worry about fire every year, especially right now in the fall, in September, October, November, when we have the Santa Ana conditions that can create a rapid spread of fire. And then of course we see it throughout the state, and we need to do everything we can to prepare for the possibility of fire. So our fire department is proactive in clearing evacuation routes, in communicating with residents. There's a fire task force in Olevenhain, and I think that we are doing a lot. I've been endorsed by our firefighters because of my commitment to public safety, and I took a tour before COVID hit of all of the things that have been done just in the last year to make it even safer to evacuate. So people need to be prepared, have a plan, have a go bag, have a place for your large animals if you live in Olevenhain, because there's no question that if everybody tries to get on the road at the same minute, it doesn't matter how wide your road is, it is going to be congested if you're trying to do that. So having evacuation routes that are taking place over time and as many roads open as possible, that's what we need in order to be as safe as we can possibly be.
Thank you. Julie Thunder, same question. Fire is a threat to many of our communities. How will you support and improve our fire prevention and response efforts within our higher fire zones?
I feel very strongly about this. Olevenhain needs a 3-man station and a permanent building purchased by the city, and they need a seriously upgraded fire truck. That's number one. Number two, the fire task force that my opponent just spoke of is called the Fire Safety Commission, and it has nothing to do with the city. A group of residents are doing it themselves because they've gotten so little attention from the city. So thank goodness they're taking control of their own destiny. Next, the area around Val Sereno neighborhood, where there used to be a lake that some developer created with the Escondido Creek. That lake is long since gone, but the area that became the lake is now infilled with non-native plant species and tons of dead undergrowth and a lot of eucalyptus trees. That's been ignored for years. Those residents have been begging for help. They're literally scared, especially this time of year. They're calling me because they're getting nothing from our city. There is a question of who manages that area, the city versus the county, but those residents are part of the city. So as your mayor, I will work with the county to solve that problem. It needs to be solved before next fire season. So thank you.
Thank you. Julie, this question will go to you first. Many residents have mentioned concerns with homelessness in Encinitas. What are your plans to address these issues?
Well, thank you. I'd like to clarify about the mayor's been saying constantly that I'm anti-homeless. I'm not, but I'll tell you right now, I'm anti people pooping in my yard, which has happened. I'm anti not being able to go to the park because there's so many of them living there. I'm anti having them park around the curbs at the park and run their engines all night. And the people who live across the street, for example, Glen Park, have to smell their exhaust all night. I'm anti them camping in the rail corridor so that the residents of Coral Cove have to watch them get out and go potty in their buckets every morning. That is not right. If we need a safe parking lot, that's fine. If it's being used, I'm happy for the people that can use it and be safe. But why are we allowing people to park and camp in our city when we have a municipal code that says that's not allowed, and we can have them go to the safe parking lot? That's number one. Number two, the homeless in our city that want to get better, there's so many solutions that our city could invite in that would cost nothing. There's Wheels for Change, Solutions for Change. There's an East County Transitional Learning Center that is developing satellite programs. There are ways to help the people that want the help, but opening a homeless parking lot with a state grant using the homeless numbers of the entire North County region, which made it the regional homeless parking lot, was not the right way to go. And recently, by the way, our homeless action plan determined that 80% of the homeless people in our city right now are not from here. How did that happen? We have more than we had a year ago. If you have a business downtown, you know it, I know it. I'm dealing with the mess in my yard. I know you're hosing off your storefronts. And now I've got friends who live behind Trader Joe's telling me that they're having the same issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Blakespear, same question. Many residents have mentioned concerns with homelessness in Encinitas. What are your plans to address these issues?
Yes. So homelessness is a humanitarian crisis, and it is affecting cities all throughout California, especially coastal cities. And my goals and my commitments as mayor are to try to help people who need it, having a compassionate approach, and then also to protect our public spaces. So under no circumstances do I want us to have tent cities in our parks, in our downtown. We are operating under a system of laws. And if you don't have a shelter bed, you cannot move somebody and say, you can be here. So the city of Encinitas does not have a shelter. We are currently doing a homeless action plan so that we can get our arms around the entirety of the situation of homelessness in Encinitas, because the point in time count says there are about 120 homeless people in the city. But if you talk to, for example, Scripps, how many people do they see in the ER in Encinitas, or you talk to the Community Resource Center, the number is closer to something like 800. And so we need to have solutions of government. We need our county to be more engaged in North County, into the city of San Diego. We need to have partnership with the state. We need to utilize some of that money that's available from the state to handle homelessness here in Encinitas. And we haven't had that. So if you look at the difference in the two candidates here, I am wanting to tackle this problem. I'm not wanting to criminalize it and say if we can somehow make it go away through some easy thing, because city would have done it. But we need everybody to be working together. First, mental health, drug addiction, all of those things are part of the puzzle, and it is very complex and it needs all of our attention.
Thank you, Mayor Blakespear. You will be next on this next question, which is, how do you view your relationship with the residents of Encinitas? Do you feel that you do, or would you make decisions that reflect the majority of the residents' desires? Yeah,
sorry, but could you repeat the question?
Yes,
it went out there for a minute.
Yeah, we seem to be cutting in and out, or someone is cutting in and out. So I'll repeat the question, and please let me know if you hear it correctly. Is how do you view the relationship with the residents of Encinitas, and do you feel that you do or would make decisions that reflect the majority of the residents' desires?
Well, yes, I absolutely do. I mean, if you look back just 2 years, I was elected with 83% of the vote. 83% is a lot. It's very hard to get that many people to support really anybody. And so I feel there's no question I represent residents and they feel that I represent them. I think that if you're honest about this question, you recognize that residents don't always agree. So on almost every major decision, like the homeless parking lot, we have a split room of very, very strong opinions. And so the important thing in your elected leaders is that they share a sense of the values. I mean, elections are how we resolve our value disputes. And so my values are to be compassionate, inclusive, committed to you, to hearing you out, and to coming up with a solution that works for everybody, but then also to move things forward, to be a doer. Because I think it's really easy to throw stones, to point fingers, to say that should be done differently, or that should be a no. And what I'm interested in is, how do we get to yes? I think people want you to do something. They want us in elected office to make their life better. And I am always working. I see this role as being in the middle of concentric circles of a lot of different interests, trying to knit it together so that we can come up with ways to move the community forward. And under my leadership, we've done that very successfully. And I'm proud of the things that we've done. And I think that we will continue to do them, because at base, I think that the residents of Encinitas are in line with me, and I am in line with them, recognizing the great diversity of opinions that we have on any subject.
Thank you very much. Julie Thunder, the same question to you is, how do you view your relationship with the residents of Encinitas? And do you feel that you would make decisions that reflect the majority of residents' desires?
Well, I'm not in office, but in my personal life, I have an incredible number of friends here. I actually have some friends on this call and maybe more than I know. So I do 100% see my role as Mayor of Encinitas in the classic citizen government paradigm that our country was founded on. I don't think you have to be an expert to run for council or mayor. I think you have to be rational and reasonable and have your heart in the right place. I also believe that the whole point of this, for me, is to get us back to a more representative government. Our current council, with their 5-0 votes, tells me that a lot of the council members are leading or following somebody on their votes. And I don't think that's right. I think it's good when a council is divided and when they have healthy debate and healthy discussions. I also feel strongly about the way we're surveying and polling our residents. Right now, there's a SurveyMonkey poll that was just released today for Pacific View. How are they doing that? Who are they reaching out to? Do you have to have already requested emails to be on that list? I think that's how I got mine. But I want to find a better way. I want to find a way that truly reaches out to each resident. It's 2020. Surely there's a way. Surely there are cities out there that have solved this problem and have figured out how to quickly poll the residents of the city. Let's do this. I want to do it. And I think that we'll have a much truer picture of what the people of Encinitas really want.
Thank you. And this is our final question. And Julie Thunder, you will be going first. And the question is, how do you plan on addressing the issues related to climate change? And further, why do you think these issues are important to the Encinitas residents to solve?
Well, I think climate change is important for all of us to address and to do what we can to solve it. The question is, how much can one city do? You heard one of the other candidates say every city needs to do their part. I fully agree with that. But what part is effective enough that it's worth the changes that are being made in our city? By the way, our climate action plan on the second page says, quote, our award-winning climate action plan says, quote, an environmental initial study determined that the climate action plan would not have a significant impact on the environment, end quote. Now, my opponent will say, well, that's because if we do that, we have to have a sequel. Well, why aren't we having an environmental review over the climate action plan? If our climate action plan is dictating many parts of our government, then I think we should have a big review on that. Also, before we fix the world's climate, we need to fix what we're doing wrong here, like what you've heard about with the unfiltered stormwater runoff to the lagoon and the sewer line that's been faulty. My opponent is on record of saying, quote, we need to densify the coastline to prevent climate change. I ask you, do you believe we need to destroy Encinitas to save Encinitas? I don't think so. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Blakespear, same question is, how do you plan on addressing the issues related to climate change? And further, why do you think these issues are important to the Encinitas residents to solve?
Well, clearly climate change is an existential threat. And we in the city of Encinitas, the current group of elected officials is very environmentally oriented. So we passed a gold standard climate action plan that has measurable accountability, and we are pursuing that plan. And I think that the idea that we are somehow in violation of stormwater permits or there's sewer leaking into the lagoon, if any of that was the case, the regulatory agencies, the resource agencies would be fining us daily. This is not something that is just the Wild West. Things like stormwater and sewer are very heavily regulated. So those allegations are just not true. But in the bigger picture, the Climate Action Plan is the central organizing document of the city. Everything we do relates back to that. And if you look at it, what we're doing is looking at the sources of emissions. So it's the transportation sector, it's the energy sector, it's the waste sector. And we are tackling those, trying to make it easier to bike and walk, planting more trees, being more ecologic with water, prioritizing air quality, all of the things that we can do to lead locally. Because ultimately, Fighting climate change will come down to local decisions, and we need to have people in leadership positions that care about the environment, that are making that a top priority, and that is the case for me. That's why I've been endorsed by the Sierra Club and all of the different environmental organizations, and I will continue to lead with a commitment to the environment in my next term as mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Blakespear and Julie Thunder, for answering those questions. We are going to move on to the closing statements. Mayor Blakespear, you will be first, and it will be 3 minutes for each of you. So go ahead when ready.
Are you sure I'm first? Because I went first at the intro.
We have been doing first on each.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just want to make sure it was fair. Okay. Well, thank you very much for being here tonight and listening to the candidates. I think there are a couple things that I just want to clarify. So one of them is that the idea that 5-0 votes are bad. I think that if you listen to the Encinitas City Council or watch us, what you see is that we all have our different opinions and the things that we bring to the table, and we work it out. You want people who are looking for compromise, who are trying to find an answer that everyone can support, because that actually is the way things move forward seamlessly, trying to find consensus. So the idea that split votes are better, we don't want the city run by political theater and individual personalities. So I will continue to always work with my colleagues to try to get us to a consensus decision. It's also important to note that my opponent claims that I am supported by all of these developers and we're involved in all of these lawsuits. I just want to tell you that we are involved in lawsuits. When we approve something, we get sued. When we deny something, we get sued. We're also involved in a lawsuit with the state over the right to vote and the preemption issues around state law and local law. These are very thorny issues, and we are trying to navigate our way through them, providing more affordable housing, protecting your right to vote, while also complying with state law. And all of those things are a sticky wicket, and we're trying our very best to represent the community and do that in the best way possible. My opponent is running on a platform of negativity. There's just no question that almost everything that she's talking about is saying that the city is in a bad position and we are doing it wrong. And I just want you to really think about if that is who you want to be your mayor. It's about complaints. It's about grievances. It's not about a positive vision for the future. My track record demonstrates this positive vision for the future. And I will bring that to my next term as mayor as well. So I thank you for tuning in tonight. I am grateful for your support. I have had close to 800 individual contributions. I'm endorsed by a wide range of people on all different sides. I am a consensus candidate. As I said before, I won the last election with 83% of the vote, and I'm looking forward to having your support in this election as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Julie Thunder, you will have 3 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you. We all want Encinitas to prosper, but that requires a thriving business community. I know firsthand the struggle of starting a business from the ground up. When my husband and I started our business, we spent years without vacations, and we nervously watched our monthly checkbook balance while raising our family. I appreciate the value of building it yourself and the pride of ownership that comes with that. As mayor of Encinitas, I don't want to get in your way. I want to see you realize your dreams. Your success should not be hampered with unreasonable regulations and permits. I'm keenly aware of how important customer access is, and I won't vote to hinder that access. Instead, I'll work with you to improve it. I hope that those of you who have done business in other cities will come to me and share how they did it better, because I know there's room for improvement. There's room for better communication between the city and our business community, and the coordination between city events and the businesses affected must be managed better. But all of this is a moot point if we lose the Encinitas we've all come to love. We need to address the elephant in the room, housing and the tumultuous storm we've all been through. In 2013, we enacted a mechanism to protect the character of our communities, Prop A. My opponent has reversed our Prop A vote and sued you and me to invalidate it forever so that this council and future councils can upzone any property without consulting the voters. She also reversed our vote on Measure U, the housing element most of us voted no on, remember? Apparently elections don't matter because she submitted it to the state anyway And now it's our housing law. What will we say to our children and grandchildren when they ask if they should bother to vote? I will protect Prop A. I will defend your community character and home values. I will speak up for people who need an affordable place to live. We can do all this without ruining Encinitas. We can demand the developers set aside a higher percentage of their projects for lower income housing. My opponent refuses to do that. Is this why 9 developers have dumped money into her campaign? 2 of them contributed nearly $20,000 to a political action committee solely to re-elect her. What do they expect in return? I have no developer contributions. I don't have a PAC that I know of. And folks, there's more than housing at stake here. A recent Sandag report shows violent crime in Encinitas up 58%. Does that statistic reflect a mayor who cares about public safety? I'm endorsed by the Sheriff's Association for a reason. I envision an Encinitas that places public safety and neighborhood preservation ahead of other considerations, and I will always fight for control of our land use decisions. My hands aren't tied, they're ready to fight for our town. Thank you for listening tonight.
All right, I want to thank Mayor Catherine Blakespear and Julie Thunder. Thank you for the time and answering the questions in depth and giving the voters a look into your opinions and what you would do either on a next term or if elected. I want to thank all of the candidates for tonight. It was you all contributed and were great participants in organizing this. I do also want to give a special shout out to Jim Benedetti, who planned this and reached out and scheduled with the candidates for all of that. You know, I think everybody knows that there's a lot at stake, and we can all do our part by voting. I think by now you're probably tired of hearing the message of make sure you have your plan to vote, but if your plan is to come visit us at the chamber, we are a ballot drop-off. We will be every day from weekdays, from 10 to 4, and then on election day, I believe we are open later, but I don't have that exactly, but I believe 5 or 6 for that. 8 o'clock, Sherry informed me, 8 p.m. So I want to thank everybody again. This was a great forum. Please, if you have questions about the Encinitas Chamber and how we're supporting businesses, you can visit us at encinitaschamber.com. And I want to thank all the candidates again.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Jim. Thank you, Catherine. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.